A silent circle of stones stands on a hilltop, holding a secret for thousands of years. These enigmatic hilltop complexes are far more than random monuments. From the green hills of Britain to the high Andes of Peru, ancient peoples built these structures with a purpose so advanced it challenges everything we thought we knew about their world. By the end of this exploration, you will see the scattered pieces of a prehistoric puzzle click into place, revealing a potential map of the entire planet. What if these sites were not isolated but connected nodes in a vast, forgotten network? How could cultures separated by oceans possibly share the same precise astronomical knowledge? We will journey through stunning archaeological evidence, decode celestial alignments, and weigh controversial theories that suggest our ancestors possessed a sophisticated understanding of the earth and sky long before recorded history. What do you believe is the greatest mystery left behind by ancient cultures? Rising from the English countryside, Silbury Hill forms a perfect grassy pyramid, an immense human-made mound that has guarded its secrets for over 4,000 years. This is not a natural hill, but a constructed enigma, one of countless enigmatic hilltop complexes built by ancient peoples across the globe. These are not random collections of stones or earth. They are intentionally placed on elevated terrain, commanding views of the land and sky, and they share a family resemblance that stretches from Britain to Peru. Archaeologist Aubrey Burl called them landscape cathedrals, places of profound spiritual and communal significance for prehistoric communities. They were the centers of their world, both physically and symbolically. What defines these sites? First, their strategic elevation. They were built on hills, ridges, and plateaus, positions that required immense effort to develop but offered unparalleled vistas. Second, they are frequently aligned with celestial bodies. The rising sun on a solstice might slice perfectly between two standing stones, or the full moon would crest directly over a central mound. Third, they utilize local materials, earth and stone, shaped with astonishing precision. And fourth, they often share recurring geometric motifs, circles, lines, and mounds found in distant cultures that supposedly never met. Look at the Carnac alignments in France. Here, thousands of massive standing stones were arranged in long, parallel rows that march across the landscape like a petrified army. The scale is breathtaking, implying a coordinated, society-wide effort spanning generations. These are not haphazard placements. They feature common structural elements, concentric ditches that encircle sacred space, towering megaliths that pierce the sky, and processional pathways that guide movement in a specific ceremonial flow. Why did cultures separated by vast oceans and millennia repeatedly choose hilltops for their most enduring monuments? The answer may lie not in viewing these sites as isolated temples, but as points in a much grander design. From the misty Scottish highlands to the sun-baked highlands of Ethiopia, a recurring image haunts the landscape. A ring of stones stands silent vigil, a circle whose form seems to echo across continents and centuries. This is the heart of the global distribution mystery, a puzzle written in earth and stone. How can nearly identical hilltop complexes appear in cultures separated by vast oceans, built by peoples who, according to conventional history, never met? Anthropologist John Mitchell pointed to a recurring sacred geometry in these places, a shared language of circles, lines, and mounds that implies a common understanding of the cosmos. This widespread pattern forces a difficult question. Did these cultures independently arrive at the same profound conclusions about the universe, or is this evidence of a prehistoric network, a thread of knowledge connecting the ancient world. The evidence for this connection is written in the alignments of the stars and the sun. Consider the long barrow of Newgrange in Ireland. For a few precious minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a slender beam of sunlight pierces a carefully constructed roof box, illuminating the inner chamber in a golden glow. Across the sea in Scotland, the chambered cairn of Michaud performs the same celestial trick, its entrance passage perfectly aligned to capture the setting sun of the midwinter. Now travel thousands of miles to the coastal desert of Peru. Here, the 13 towers of Chankillo form an artificial horizon, a prehistoric solar calendar where the sun rises and sets between specific towers at precise times of the year, marking the solstices with the same accuracy as its European counterparts. These cultures had no contact as we understand it, yet they shared an obsessive, precise knowledge of the solar cycle. This pattern extends beyond astronomy into architecture and symbol. The terraced hillsides of Southeast Asia, painstakingly carved into fertile steppes, find a strange mirror in the agricultural terraces of the Andes. Both are feats of landscape engineering on a colossal scale. Then there are the motifs. The spiral, carved into stones from ancient Ireland, appears again in the American Southwest and in the rock art of Australia. The concentric circle, a symbol of cosmic order, is found in the stone balls of Costa Rica and the geoglyphs of the Nazca Plateau. How could such specific ideas and constructions emerge independently across the globe? The sheer consistency in orientation, form, and symbol challenges the idea of isolated development. It nudges us toward a radical possibility that these sites were not just local temples, but points of reference in a grander scheme, a prehistoric system for understanding and perhaps even mapping the entire Earth. The sky above Stonehenge begins to soften with the first hint of dawn. As the sun crests the horizon, its golden light strikes precisely between the ancient Sarsen arches, framing the massive heel stone in a blaze of fire. For a moment, the entire structure aligns with the cosmos, a moment of breathtaking precision repeated every summer solstice for thousands of years. This was no accident. It is a deliberate alignment, a signature of a deeper understanding. Astronomical alignments form the cornerstone of the theory that these hilltop complexes were far more than ritual spaces. They were celestial observatories, sophisticated instruments for reading the sky. Renowned astronomer Gerald Hawkins, after a meticulous analysis of the site, called Stonehenge a Neolithic computer, a machine built of stone capable of predicting eclipses and marking the complex cycles of the seasons with uncanny accuracy. This principle extends far beyond a single sunrise. These ancient engineers tracked the solstices and equinoxes, the subtle lunar standstills that occur over an 18-year cycle, and the rising of key stars. They mapped the sky directly onto the landscape. They used natural horizon markers like a distant notch between two hills and enhanced them with artificial structures. They created precise sightlines through stone apertures and doorways, and they used standing stones to cast shadows that moved like clock hands across the earth, marking the passage of time and the changing seasons. This was a global practice. In the coastal desert of Peru, the 13 towers of Chankillo stand as a 2,300-year-old solar calendar. This line of 13 rectangular towers spans the ridge of a hill, and from specific observing points, the sun rises and sets directly over each tower in a precise sequence throughout the year. The entire complex functions as a giant stone calendar, marking dates with an accuracy that rivals any modern device. So why does mapping the sky matter for mapping the Earth? To know where you are on a vast, featureless planet, you need fixed points of reference. The sun, moon, and stars provided those constant guides. By creating permanent observation points on high ground that were perfectly aligned to celestial events, these ancient cultures were effectively creating a network of fixed coordinates. Each hilltop complex, with its unique set of alignments, could have served as a known point on a vast prehistoric grid. The ability to track celestial movements so precisely implies a corresponding knowledge of the Earth's shape and orientation. It suggests that by understanding their place under the heavens, they were also charting their place upon the globe. This celestial mapping inevitably leads to a terrestrial one, rooted in the very shape of our world. That same celestial precision is mirrored on the ground with an accuracy that defies simple explanation. Modern surveyors using sophisticated GPS technology have verified the breathtaking placement of ancient sites. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, is aligned to true north with an error of just a fraction of a single degree. This level of geodetic precision, the science of measuring the Earth itself, is not confined to Egypt. It echoes in the enigmatic hilltop complexes scattered across the globe. Take Glastonbury Tor in England, a natural hill shaped and terraced by human hands. Its striking position seems to resonate with other sacred sites across the landscape, forming invisible geometric patterns. This suggests the builders possessed a profound understanding of the Earth's shape and size, positioning their monuments according to a grand design. The work of researcher Alexander Thom revealed a startling consistency across hundreds of European stone circles. He proposed that their builders used a standardized unit of measurement, which he termed the megalithic yard, approximately 2.72 feet. This shared unit of length, appearing in structures from Scotland to Brittany, implies a common system of knowledge, a prehistoric standard that allowed for coordinated construction across vast distances. But the patterns run even deeper. The layouts of these complexes frequently incorporate perfect Pythagorean triangles, shapes defined by specific mathematical ratios, long before the philosopher Pythagoras was born. They are often aligned to the cardinal directions with uncanny accuracy. Even more compelling, the distances between major sites often form whole number ratios, as if they were plotted points on a continental scale grid. In Greece, the Oracle of Delphi was not simply built on a scenic mountainside. It was situated at the precise intersection of what some researchers identify as powerful geological or energy lines, and it maintains direct alignments with other sacred peaks. Could such intricate placement be mere coincidence, the result of random chance over thousands of years? Or does it point to an intentional, sophisticated effort to chart territories, trade routes, and spiritual pathways on a truly grand scale? To accept this possibility, we must then ask a seemingly impossible question. What tools could these ancient cultures have possibly used to achieve such a feat? Carved into a stone deep inside Ireland's Newgrange, a triple spiral seems to pulse with ancient energy. Now shift your gaze to a desert rock in the American Southwest, where an almost identical spiral has been etched by a culture, an ocean, and a world away. This is not an isolated coincidence. Across the globe, these enigmatic hilltop complexes are adorned with a recurring set of symbols, spirals, zigzags, concentric circles, and labyrinth patterns. Mythologist Joseph Campbell saw these not as random art, but as universal archetypes, a shared vocabulary of the human psyche representing the cosmos, the flow of water, or the winding path of a spiritual journey. But what if these symbols served a far more practical purpose? What if they were the cartographic markers of a lost world, a prehistoric visual language inscribed upon the land itself? When we find the same motifs repeated at sacred sites from Britain to Peru, it suggests they might encode vital information. A spiral could chart the sun's looping path across the sky, perhaps marking the specific solar alignments of a solstice. Concentric circles found around sacred springs or atop significant hills might denote a protected water source or the boundary of a holy zone. A zigzag pattern chiseled into a standing stone may not be mere decoration, but a symbolic map of a local river valley or the profile of a distant mountain range. Look again at the Newgrange triple spiral. Its three interconnected coils perfectly mirror the three prominent peaks of the surrounding Boyne Valley landscape. This symbol, placed at the very heart of a tomb aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, could be a multi-layered map, simultaneously charting the terrestrial world and the celestial event that illuminated it. Could these recurring motifs represent a primitive but global map key? They seem to offer instructions, warnings, and directions to those who could read them, transforming silent stones into a guidebook for a continent-spanning network. This symbolic language, carved in stone, finds its living echo in the stories and songs passed down through countless generations. Around that same flickering fire, a story is being told. It is not merely a tale for entertainment, but a living map, a detailed guide to the land itself. For countless generations, oral traditions and mythology served as humanity's most enduring libraries, preserving and transmitting vital knowledge across centuries. The folklorist Mircea Eliade identified a profound global pattern, the concept of the axis mundi. Across countless cultures, hills and mountains were revered as sacred places where the earth met the sky, a cosmic pillar connecting the human world with the divine. These elevated sites were not just spiritually significant, they were central waypoints in a vast, remembered geography. The epic tales of culture, heroes like the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica or the wise scribe Thoth in Egypt, are more than just myths. Within their spiritual narratives, they may carry encrypted instructions, practical cartographic data about how to navigate the world and where to build in alignment with the heavens. These stories break down into distinct practical categories. Some myths describe travel routes guided by specific constellations, providing a celestial map for long journeys. Other epic poems and legends recount heroic journeys that curiously mirror the actual migratory paths and trade routes used by early peoples. And many seasonal rituals are elaborate reenactments of cosmic cycles, performed at specific hilltops or stone circles that mark the turning of the year. A powerful example of this survives in Australia's Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. These are not mere legends, but intricate songlines that crisscross the entire continent. Each song is a detailed map describing the location of every waterhole, the profile of every mountain, and the path through every valley. By singing the ancient verses, individuals could navigate vast, featureless deserts with perfect accuracy, the landscape itself encoded in rhythm and melody. This forces us to ask a profound question. How much of what we dismiss as pure mythology is, in fact, a sophisticated preservation of factual geography? These stories, passed from elder to child by the fire's light, may have been the very mechanism that allowed a precise understanding of sacred sites and celestial alignments to span the globe, long before the first map was ever drawn. The legends point us toward the high places, urging us to look closer at the stones themselves. The moorland mist clings to the granite rose on Dartmoor, where lines of ancient stones stretch over the hills like a procession frozen in time. This is the British Isles, a landscape so densely woven with enigmatic hilltop complexes it feels like an open-air cathedral of staggering scale. From the iconic sarsens of Stonehenge to the haunting stone circle of Callanish on the Isle of Lewis, these monuments form a network of breathtaking sophistication. Archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson's work revealed that Stonehenge was never an isolated masterpiece. It was the heart of a vast ritual landscape, intrinsically linked to the massive settlement of Durrington Walls and the enigmatic, mile-long earthwork known as the Cursus. These sites spoke to one another across the chalk downlands, their positions and alignments creating a coordinated map of the region, etched into the earth itself. At Avebury, the largest stone circle in Europe, the concentric rings and towering megaliths are precisely aligned to both solar and lunar events, capturing the subtle dance of the heavens. Nearby, the immense human-made mound of Silbury Hill rises from the flat plain, a permanent and visible landmark that can be seen for miles. Its placement was no accident. It served as a central reference point, a fixed node in this prehistoric network. These complexes were likely used to mark territory, to guide seasonal gatherings, and to facilitate pilgrimage along ancient trackways like the Ridgeway Path. This ancient corridor, stretching over 87 miles, connects a chain of hill forts, burial mounds, and henges, functioning as a mapped route for trade, ceremony, and communication. The entire system suggests a society that saw its homeland not as a collection of separate villages, but as a single, interconnected whole, meticulously charted through stone and earth. If one small cluster of islands could hold such a complex, coordinated system, what might we find when we expand our view across an ocean? High in the thin air of the Andes, the stone walls of Machu Picchu cling to a ridge, its temples and terraces appearing to float among the clouds. Here, the ancient builders did not simply construct on the mountain. They became one with it, weaving their architecture into the very fabric of the sacred peaks. This is the domain of the Apus, the mountain spirits, and the hilltop complexes here are celestial observatories of breathtaking precision. Scholar Brian Bauer documented how the Incas meticulously aligned their sites with the cosmos, such as the June solstice sunrise and the rising of the Pleiades star cluster. These were not abstract events, they were the heartbeat of the empire, dictating the planting and harvesting cycles that sustained millions. To achieve this, Andean astronomers used horizon pillars known as sucancas. These stone markers on the surrounding ridges created an artificial horizon, allowing priests to track the sun's subtle movements with incredible accuracy from a fixed observation point. The entire landscape was their instrument. At the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, immense stone walls are zigzagged, mirroring the silhouette of the mountain behind it in a stunning display of architectural mimicry. Natural rock outcrops were incorporated into temples, their flowing forms seemingly alive, blending human artistry with divine creation. This sacred geography was mapped with rigid order from the imperial capital of Cusco. Radiating out from the central temple were 41 straight lines called secs. These invisible pathways connected hundreds of sacred sites, huacas, which included springs, stones, and hilltop shrines, forming a radial map of the entire valley. Each sec line was the responsibility of a specific clan, a web of spiritual and social duty etched across the land. Look at the terraced mountainside of Pisac. Its sweeping agricultural curves and precisely placed temples are not just a feat of engineering. Some researchers suggest the layout mirrors the stars of the constellation Cygnus, while its position perfectly charts the sacred Urubamba River valley snaking below. The entire complex is a multi-layered map encoding celestial patterns onto a terrestrial canvas. How does this Andean precision, born in the clouds, compare to the systems built by cultures gazing at the same stars from the shores of the Mediterranean Sea? Marble columns catch the last light of the setting sun, crowning the Acropolis of Athens like a beacon over the Aegean Sea. This Mediterranean tradition of building on high places created a network of sanctuaries that seemed to chart the ancient world itself. From the oracle at Delphi to the massive stone temples of Malta like G, with dot above Gantaja, these complexes were masterpieces of strategic placement. Historian Cyprian Broodbank describes how their panoramic views served multiple purposes. surveillance of approaching ships, control over vital trade routes, and the performance of rituals that tied the community to the cosmos. Their positions were not random. They were carefully chosen to align with sea lanes, mountain passes, and even each other, potentially forming a vast maritime and terrestrial map. The temples of Malta, among the oldest free-standing structures in the world, are precisely oriented to celestial events. The sprawling complex of Mnadra, for instance, has its lower temple aligned so that the equinox sunrise illuminates its central axis, while the solstice sunbeams strike specific megaliths. This is more than celestial observation. It is a permanent fixing of cosmic time onto the landscape. Far to the north, Delphi was considered the navel of the world, its sacred precinct built at the precise intersection of major land and sea routes. Pilgrims and goods flowed along these paths, making the sanctuary a central node in a web of communication and commerce. This network was visual as well. On clear days, fires lit on one hilltop sanctuary could be seen from the next, a chain of light signaling across the sea between islands, a real-time system connecting communities. A fascinating artifact found in a palace on Crete, the Phaistos disk, adds another layer to this puzzle. This clay disk, pressed with mysterious spiral symbols and pictographs, remains undeciphered. Some researchers have proposed its intricate patterns do not represent a language, but a map, perhaps charting a sacred journey, trade routes, or even the positions of the hilltop sanctuaries themselves. Whether this specific object is a map or not, the concept is compelling. Could these Mediterranean sanctuaries, through constant seafaring and trade, have shared a common understanding of geography, encoding it into the very placement of their most sacred sites? If so, what practical instruments allowed them to plot these precise locations across the treacherous expanse of the open sea? A simple length of rope, stretched taut between two stakes, becomes a perfect radius for a circle that will last millennia. The builders of these enigmatic complexes did not possess our technology, but they wielded a profound understanding of geometry and physics. With nothing more than wooden sighting poles, knotted cords, and water-filled trenches, they achieved a precision that still baffles modern surveyors. Researcher John Neal has demonstrated through practical experiment that a basic tool called a groma, a simple cross of wood that could sight right angles, was more than sufficient to lay out the vast parallel rows of stones at Karnak. A team using such tools could have established a baseline and, through a process of triangulation, extended perfectly straight lines and precise geometric shapes across miles of undulating landscape. The water level, a trench filled with water, provided a perfectly horizontal reference line on any slope, allowing for the careful terracing of hillsides and the level foundations of massive stone platforms. The humble shadow stick, a vertical pole placed in the ground, became a sophisticated solar compass. By tracking the moving tip of its shadow throughout the day, an observer could determine true north and south with remarkable accuracy, and by marking the shadow's extreme lengths at the solstices, they could chart the entire solar year. How did they measure vast distances between hilltops? They likely used long, standardized cords knotted at regular intervals. A team of people would simply walk the distance, counting the knots, effectively pacing out the landscape with a shared unit of measure. For vertical accuracy, a simple stone weight on a string, a plumb bob, ensured that their monolith stood perfectly upright. And for aligning sights over the horizon, they may have used reflected sunlight from polished stones or coordinated the lighting of bonfires on successive peaks, creating a chain of sighted points across the land. This practical toolkit transformed abstract celestial knowledge into physical reality on the ground. The mathematical principles behind these methods, the Pythagorean triangles and the precise ratios found in the layouts, were not written in books but were understood as inherent relationships within the natural world. The very act of building was an expression of this cosmic mathematics. Does the global recurrence of these techniques and this underlying geometric language point to multiple independent discoveries, or does it suggest something far more profound, the scattered fragments of a shared prehistoric science for mapping the Earth itself? These silent stone nodes scattered across the globe could form a prehistoric world wide web, an ancient internet of earth and stone connecting continents. This is the core of a controversial theory, suggesting these hilltop complexes were not independent creations but parts of a unified global mapping tradition. Authors like Graham Hancock propose a radical possibility that a lost civilization with advanced knowledge of the earth and sky predated all known cultures, seeding this tradition before vanishing. Another view suggests a widespread cultural exchange, where knowledge was painstakingly passed along ancient migratory routes and sea voyages over thousands of years. The arguments for this are compelling. Consider the base dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan. They are nearly identical, a mathematical echo across an ocean. These sites and many others appear to be aligned along specific great circles, imaginary lines encircling the globe that mark the shortest path between 2 points. They seem to encode fundamental geodetic data, such as the Earth's obliquity, the precise tilt of its axis into their placement, shared astronomical reference points like the solstice sun or specific star clusters, provided a common clock for this entire system, allowing different cultures to synchronize their maps to the same celestial time. One fascinating illustration is the oracle network hypothesis. In the ancient Mediterranean, oracles like Delphi in Greece and Dodona in Epirus were not just isolated shrines. They formed a mapped circuit of spiritual and political influence, positioned at key geographical and energetic points, their fame drawing pilgrims and power along established routes. Mainstream archaeology remains deeply skeptical, pointing to a lack of concrete evidence for transoceanic contact and favoring the theory of independent invention, where different cultures simply arrived at similar solutions to universal human needs. The similarities in pyramid size, for instance, could be a coincidence of optimal architectural proportions for building tall, stable structures. The choice is yours to weigh. Does the sheer consistency of form, alignment, and symbol across the world point to a shared, forgotten source? Or does it reveal the incredible power of the human mind to independently decipher the same cosmic patterns? If such a network did exist, what powerful cultural purpose could have driven its creation on such a staggering, global scale? The solstice sunrise bathes the hilltop in a warm, golden light, uniting the gathered community in a shared moment of awe. This was far more than a celestial event. It was the heartbeat of their culture, a powerful ritual that connected them to the cosmos, to their ancestors, and to distant tribes performing similar ceremonies on their own high places. These enigmatic hilltop complexes served as the ultimate expression of a society's worldview, blending spiritual belief, social order, and economic necessity into a single, mapped landscape. Anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss described this as a science of the concrete, a way of understanding the universe by imposing a meaningful, human order upon the natural world. Every aligned stone and terraced slope was both a practical tool and a profound spiritual statement. At the core of this system was the concept of the axis mundi, the sacred center where heaven and earth met. In countless creation myths, the world began from such a high place, making these sites physical anchors for a people's identity and origin stories. They were not just observing the sky, they were participating in the cosmic order, reinforcing their place within it through initiation rites and seasonal festivals held at these powerful locations. These gatherings transformed abstract beliefs into lived experience, strengthening social bonds and passing cultural knowledge to the next generation. Beyond spiritual unity, these mapped landscapes had immense practical value. They functioned as astronomical calendars, their alignments dictating the optimal times for planting and harvest, ensuring the community's survival. They also demarcated territory, their visible presence on the horizon signaling to others the lands of a specific clan or tribe. Furthermore, they facilitated trade and pilgrimage, acting as neutral grounds where different groups could meet, exchange goods, and share knowledge under the watchful eyes of the gods. Consider the great city of Cahokia, centered around its massive earthen mounds near the Mississippi River. Monk's Mound, the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas, towered over a vast plaza. Research suggests its orientation and the placement of surrounding mounds, like the unique Woodhenge circle of wooden posts, were precisely aligned to lunar cycles and solar events. This entire complex was likely a grand map of both time and trade, a central hub that charted the flow of people and resources along the Great River network. It was a place of ceremony, governance, and commerce, all encoded into the very shape of the land. This deep, symbolic mapping provided a common ground, a shared language of landscape that could unite diverse peoples across a vast region. It prompts a fascinating question. What elegant mathematical principles might this profound cultural need have inspired in the minds of the ancient builders? A forgotten mathematical language is written into the very soil of these ancient sites. Beneath the apparent chaos of standing stones and earthen banks lies a hidden order of breathtaking precision, a geometry that speaks of a deep, prehistoric understanding of number and form. Scholars like Robin Heath have meticulously measured the layouts of British stone circles and found them governed by simple whole number ratios and elegant geometric figures. These were not rough approximations. The builders employed Pythagorean triangles, shapes defined by the ratio of 3 to 4 to 5, to create perfect right angles for their enclosures long before the Greek philosopher was born. They understood the properties of circles in a practical, embodied way, often encoding approximations of pi in the relationship between a circle's perimeter and its diameter. This was not abstract math for its own sake, but a practical science for organizing the world. They used recursive scaling, where smaller earthworks nested within larger ones mirrored the same geometric proportions, creating a harmonious, fractal-like pattern across the landscape. To position multiple sites in relation to one another, they almost certainly used a form of triangulation. By establishing a long baseline between two known points, perhaps two hilltops, they could cite a third point from each end, using simple ropes and sighting poles to fix its precise location within a vast, interconnected web. This method allowed them to map territories with astonishing accuracy over many miles. Consider the rollright stones in England. The diameter of its main stone circle is not an arbitrary measurement. It appears to be a whole number of those standardized megalithic yards, a length that researchers have found repeated across Europe. This specific diameter may even relate to the lunar cycle, a number of yards corresponding to the days in a lunar month, turning the circle into a permanent stone record of celestial time. Was this sophisticated mathematical toolkit discovered independently by cultures across the globe, each arriving at the same complex ratios and constants through their own observation? Or does the recurrence of the same geometric principles from Britain to the Andes point to a single, diffused source of knowledge that has since faded from history? The challenge lies in proving a connection, as this was a mathematics of practice, not of written proof, leaving its most compelling evidence not on parchment, but in the silent, enduring alignment of stone and earth. Two archaeologists stand at the edge of a deep trench, their debate as old as the stones they study. One sees the ghost of a continent-spanning network in the placement of a distant hill fort, while the other sees nothing more than a series of fortunate coincidences. This fundamental divide lies at the heart of the research, where grand theories of a global mapping tradition meet the rigorous and often skeptical scrutiny of mainstream archaeology. Primary challenge is a profound lack of direct evidence. How can we prove contact between cultures separated by vast oceans when there is no surviving artifact, no shared written language, and no archaeological layer that places them together? As respected archaeologist Colin Renfrew has long argued, the simpler explanation is often the correct one. He champions the model of independent invention, where human societies facing similar universal problems tracking time, honoring their dead, marking territory naturally arrive at similar symbolic and architectural solutions through parallel cultural evolution. The human brain, after all, is wired to find patterns, a cognitive trait that can lead us to see deliberate design in what is merely random chance. We risk projecting our own modern, interconnected worldview onto peoples for whom the very concept of a global map may have been unimaginable. The methodological hurdles are immense. After thousands of years, sites have eroded, stones have fallen, and entire landscapes have been altered, making it difficult to be certain of an alignment's original precision. Dating these alignments is another critical issue. We can often date when a stone was erected, but proving that its alignment to a specific star was intentional, and not just a happy accident of its location, is incredibly difficult. This leads directly to the problem of equifinality, where different starting points can lead to the same final outcome. A circle of stones in Britain and a circle of stones in Peru may look identical, but one could be a solar calendar while the other is a corral for animals, built to the same efficient shape for entirely different reasons. Critics also point to the tendency to cherry-pick data. It is easy to highlight the sites that perfectly fit a theory while ignoring the dozens of others that do not align with any celestial event or geometric pattern. The interpretation of symbols is highly subjective. Is a spiral a map of the cosmos, a representation of a whirlpool, or simply pleasing decoration? Furthermore, the rich oral histories and mythologies that we rely on for context are often dismissed by skeptics as unreliable, poetic narratives rather than factual records. A classic example of this scientific pushback is the theory of ley lines, the idea that ancient sites are connected by straight, energetic lines across the landscape. While a captivating concept, it is largely rejected by the scientific community because the lines often rely on selectively choosing which sites to connect, ignoring those that disrupt the straight path, and attributing mystical properties without any measurable evidence. This healthy skepticism is not meant to destroy the mystery, but to refine our questions and demand stronger proof. It forces us to think critically, to look beyond appealing patterns and ask for the tangible, verifiable facts that could turn a beautiful idea into a supported theory. And it is precisely this demand for harder evidence that is now being answered from an unexpected quarter, as modern technology begins to scan these ancient landscapes in ways our eyes never could. A drone hums quietly over the arid hills of Peru, its laser scanner painting the ground with invisible light. Below, what appears as empty terrain reveals itself on a screen as a complex web of ancient foundations and roadways, a hidden city emerging from the earth. This is the power of modern archaeology, where technology is peeling back the layers of time to test our oldest theories about these enigmatic sites. Tools like LIDAR, which can see through dense forest canopy, and ground-penetrating radar, which maps subterranean features without a single shovel, are revolutionizing our understanding. They are confirming the astronomical alignments we suspected and revealing connections we never imagined. The Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes project, for instance, used sophisticated geophysical surveys to discover a vast arrangement of ritual pits and buried stones stretching for miles around the famous circle, proving it was the heart of a far more extensive ceremonial complex than anyone had dreamed. These technologies allow for a new kind of spatial analysis. Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, let researchers digitally model the ancient skyscape, calculating precise sight lines from a hilltop to the horizon to verify if a specific star would have risen directly over a distant stone pillar thousands of years ago. Isotopic analysis of the stones themselves can trace their origin to specific quarries, sometimes hundreds of miles away, mapping the incredible journeys these massive blocks undertook. And with digital reconstructions, we can strip away modern developments and see these sites as their builders intended, positioned within a pristine, sacred geography. Perhaps the most stunning example comes from the Guatemalan jungle, where LIDAR surveys recently uncovered a sprawling Mayan megalopolis. The data showed that what were thought to be isolated hilltop shrines were in fact carefully integrated into a vast urban plan, connected by raised causeways and surrounded by terraced agriculture on a colossal scale. This was not a collection of villages, but a managed, mapped landscape of astonishing complexity, all organized around elevated ceremonial centers. So what else remains hidden beneath our feet, waiting for the right technology to bring it into view? Each new discovery pushes the boundaries of what we thought possible for ancient societies, forcing us to reconsider the depth of their knowledge. This technological renaissance does not simply add new dots to the map. It demands we reconsider the lines connecting them, reviving a profound and controversial question. Were these separate cultures or scattered branches of a single, forgotten root? The legend of Atlantis, a sophisticated civilization swallowed by the sea, has captivated imaginations for centuries. This romantic notion forms the heart of a bold hypothesis, one suggesting that a single, advanced culture predated all known history. Figures like historian Charles Hapgood argued that this lost society possessed a profound understanding of navigation and cartography, mapping the entire globe long before the rise of Egypt or Sumer. Proponents point to enigmatic artifacts like the Peru Rise map, a 16th century chart that some believe accurately depicts the coastline of Antarctica free of its icy cap, a geographical knowledge supposedly impossible for its time. They see the precise global placement of ancient hilltop complexes not as isolated wonders, but as the scattered nodes of this unified prehistoric system. The theory offers an elegant, if controversial, solution to the mystery of global similarities, suggesting these sites are the surviving fragments of a single, grand design. Mainstream archaeology presents a starkly different view, attributing these feats to the incremental, collective innovation of known cultures over millennia. The scientific consensus holds that there is no concrete evidence, no sunken cities or technological artifacts, to support the existence of such a precursor civilization. The debate often centers on interpretation, where one researcher sees a map of a lost world, another sees a composite of known coastlines blended with mythical speculation. The architectural marvels that seem ahead of their time, from the massive stone blocks at Sacsayhuaman to the astronomical precision of the Giza pyramids, are seen not as gifts from a lost race, but as testaments to the ingenuity and dedicated labor of their respective societies. This hypothesis often draws upon geological and mythological threads to support its narrative. Proponents cite evidence of dramatic climate changes at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, which could have caused rapid sea level rise and catastrophic flooding, events severe enough to erase coastal civilizations from the archaeological record. They then turn to global mythology, noting the universal stories of a great deluge and a lost golden age, interpreting these not as mere allegory but as cultural memories of a real cataclysm that shattered a previous world order. The most compelling piece of this puzzle might be Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. This breathtaking hilltop complex of carved, T-shaped pillars was built over 12,000 years ago, a time when humanity was supposedly comprised only of small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. Its existence challenges the very timeline of human progress, forcing us to ask who these builders were and what knowledge they might have possessed. Could the consistent forms and alignments of later hilltop sites be a cultural echo of this much older, foundational tradition? The lost civilization hypothesis invites us to consider a far more complex and interconnected human past, where the lines on a forgotten map connected the entire ancient world. Two ancient traders might have met on a windswept hilltop, exchanging shells for obsidian, but also sharing something far more enduring, a story about the stars. This simple scene lies at the heart of a great debate, the question of cultural diffusion versus independent invention. Did the blueprint for these enigmatic hilltop complexes travel across the world with migrating peoples and merchant ships, or did it spring anew from the mind of every culture that gazed at the same sky? The ancient Greek historian Herodotus was an early proponent of diffusion, meticulously recording tales of vast travel and cultural exchange that stretched from Egypt to the distant north. He believed knowledge flowed along the same routes as trade goods. On the other side of this intellectual divide stands the concept of the collective unconscious, proposed by psychologist Carl Jung. He suggested that humanity shares a deep psychic substratum, a wellspring of universal symbols and archetypes, like the sacred mountain or the world tree, that could arise independently in dreams and visions anywhere on the planet. This would explain why a spiral or a zigzag pattern could be carved into stone in Ireland and also appear in the American Southwest without a single traveler ever making the journey. The case for diffusion is built on the evidence of incredible prehistoric mobility. The Lapita people, for instance, spread their distinctive dentate-stamped pottery across thousands of miles of Pacific islands, proving that ancient mariners could undertake vast, intentional voyages. Knowledge of celestial navigation and sacred geometry could have been a precious cargo, passed from one culture to the next along established trade routes like the Silk Road or through seasonal migrations. A shaman from one tribe experiencing a vision on a sacred peak might describe a particular symbol that then traveled through storytelling, slowly adapting to local materials and beliefs as it spread. Consider the enduring mystery of the pyramid, the stepped pyramids of Mesopotamia, the smooth-sided monuments of Egypt, and the towering temples of Mesoamerica all share a striking, fundamental form. The diffusionist argues this design was too specific and too complex to be reinvented multiple times, suggesting a single, ancient source of knowledge that slowly filtered around the globe. The proponent of independent invention counters that the pyramid is simply the most stable and logical way to build a tall, imposing structure from stone or earth. They point out that while the form is similar, the purposes, the internal layouts, and the accompanying mythology are wildly different, reflecting local needs and a universal human desire to reach for the heavens. So, which theory feels more compelling to you? Does the global pattern of hilltop complexes suggest a slow, deliberate sharing of a grand idea, or does it reveal the incredible, parallel creativity of the human spirit, repeatedly deciphering the same cosmic code? This question of shared origins brings us directly to the symbols themselves, a silent language carved into the landscape. A shaman traces a spiral in the sand, his finger moving in a continuous, winding path that mirrors the sun's own journey across the sky. This simple act is more than art, it is a lesson in reading the world. The enigmatic hilltop complexes we have explored were likely embedded with a symbolic language, where every carving and earthwork conveyed vital information to those who understood the code. Semiotician Umberto Eco spent his life analyzing how signs function within a culture, and we can apply this lens to prehistoric petroglyphs. A symbol was never just a picture, it was a signifier pointing to a deeper meaning, a functional piece of data about the land and the cosmos. This was a map key written in stone. Animal shapes, for instance, could have served as territorial markers. A bear petroglyph might denote the lands of the Bear Clan, while an eagle carving could indicate a sacred hunting ground or a peak used for celestial observation. These were not random depictions, but a system of labeling the landscape, defining community and resource boundaries. Then there are the mysterious cup and ring marks, those concentric circles carved into bedrock across Britain and beyond. Some researchers propose these were not merely ritual art, but practical coordinate markers. The number of rings, the direction of a single groove extending from the center, could have encoded specific directional bearings or distances to other significant sites, turning a rock surface into a prehistoric surveyor's notebook. The alignment of these symbols with seasonal phenomena added a layer of time to this spatial map. A zigzag pattern oriented toward the summer solstice sunrise might simultaneously represent a nearby river and mark the precise day its waters would begin to recede, signaling the optimal time for planting. The symbol held multiple meanings at once, blending geography with astronomy. We see a powerful echo of this practice in the Navajo star maps woven into traditional textiles. These intricate patterns do not just depict constellations in isolation. They chart the relationships between stars and specific sacred mountains on the horizon, creating a wearable celestial terrestrial map. The hilltop carvings likely functioned in the same way, encoding a multi-layered understanding of place. Can we ever fully decipher this ancient language? The context is lost, the last initiates long gone. Yet, the very existence of this symbolic system challenges our modern perception of what a map can be. It suggests that our earliest cartography was not a separate document, but an integral part of the living landscape itself, a narrative in stone that guided both the body and the spirit. This profound way of seeing the world, where every symbol held meaning and every hilltop told a story, would leave an indelible mark on all the maps that followed. A monk's quill scratches across vellum, tracing coastlines he has never seen. He copies a world map from the ancient geographer Ptolemy, unaware that its geometric principles might have been born not in a library, but on a windswept hilltop thousands of years earlier. The legacy of those prehistoric complexes did not vanish. It flowed subtly into the maps of later ages, transforming but never truly disappearing. Cartographic historian J.B. Harley observed that early maps were never purely geographical. They were deeply symbolic texts, blending the physical world with cosmology and faith, a direct echo of the multi-layered landscapes carved by our ancestors. This tradition of sacred geography found new expression in the Christian world. Pilgrimage routes led to cathedrals and shrines built deliberately on older, elevated sacred sites, continuing the ancient role of the hill as a spiritual axis. The medieval Mappi Mundi, like the magnificent Hereford map, placed Jerusalem at its center, a symbolic navel of the world mirroring the central mound of a prehistoric henge. These maps were not for navigation, but for understanding a universe ordered by divine will, where every mountain and river held a moral and a story. Even the practical science of Roman land surveying, known as centuriation, divided conquered territories into vast, precise grids aligned with the cardinal directions, a method that recalls the geometric order imposed on the land by megalithic engineers. The tools evolved, but the underlying impulse to impose a human, meaningful structure upon the Earth remained constant. Look at the portolan charts used by medieval Mediterranean sailors. These remarkable navigational maps, dense with coastal details, were often oriented using wind roses that radiated lines like a spider's web, a system some scholars suggest may have roots in the radial sec lines of Cusco or the sight lines from a stone circle. The maps included astronomical notes for navigation, directly continuing the ancient practice of using the stars to find one's way, and the symbols persisted. The spiral motifs that adorned Newgrange and countless other megaliths re-emerged in the intricate interlacing of Celtic Gospel manuscripts and later in the decorative compass roses of Renaissance sea charts, a timeless symbol of cosmic order and journey. This enduring legacy invites a profound reflection. These ancient sites were not just monuments, they were repositories of a deep ecological wisdom. Their placements understood watersheds, solar aspect, and seasonal cycles, embedding a sustainable relationship with the natural world into their very design. The modern map, for all its technological precision, often feels sterile, a simple tool for getting from one point to another. But what have we lost in that transition? The prehistoric map, woven into hill and stone, did not just show you where you were, it told you what it meant to be there under the vast and watching sky. That ancient spiral carved into the stone was more than a symbol, it was a statement of profound connection. The builders of these hilltop complexes did not simply place monuments on the landscape, they listened to it. Their choices reveal a deep ecological literacy, an understanding of the living Earth that functioned as the very foundation of their global mapping tradition. Ecologist David Abram describes this as a participatory relationship with a sentient world, where every spring, stone, and gust of wind held meaning and communicated vital information. These sites were not just celestial observatories, they were sophisticated environmental sensors, positioned to harness and monitor the natural energies of their specific location. The selection of a hilltop was a masterclass in sustainable planning. It began with water, the source of all life. A complex was almost always situated near a reliable spring or positioned directly above an aquifer, mapping the hidden watersheds of the region into its very placement. This guaranteed a permanent water supply for the community and for the pilgrims who would travel there. The orientation of structures often considered prevailing wind patterns. An entrance might be aligned to capture cooling summer breezes for ventilation, or a specific alignment of stones could funnel the wind to create audible tones, a natural signaling system across the valleys. They understood soil types, building their earthworks on stable, well-drained ground to prevent erosion and avoid seasonal flood zones, ensuring their maps would endure for millennia. This knowledge was etched into the land itself through terracing. The vast, stepped hillsides we see from Southeast Asia to the Andes are a brilliant form of landscape mapping. They transformed steep, unstable slopes into fertile, flat fields for agriculture, controlling water runoff and preventing soil loss. Each terrace wall was a contour line on a living map, a permanent record of how to cultivate and care for that specific mountainside. Consider the breathtaking cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde. These were not randomly chosen caves. Their builders mapped the entire canyon for solar exposure, selecting south-facing alcoves that captured the low winter sun for warmth while being shaded from the intense summer heat. They positioned their structures to collect precious rainwater from carefully channeled seeps in the cliff face, mapping hidden water sources into the architecture of their city. Every element of their placement was a response to the environment, a dialogue with the land that ensured their survival. How did they achieve such intimate knowledge? It was born from generations of patient observation, from understanding the paths of migrating animals that signaled changing seasons, and from reading the subtle signs of which plants thrived where. This was a map written in the language of the living world, a literacy we are only now beginning to relearn. Such a monumental undertaking required more than just individual insight. It demanded the coordinated effort of an entire community, united by a shared vision. Moving a 30-ton stone up a steep slope required more than just muscle. It demanded a society. The construction of these enigmatic hilltop complexes represents one of humanity's earliest and most ambitious collective endeavors, a testament to sophisticated social organization. Anthropologist Timothy Earle directly linked such monumental building projects to the emergence of new political structures, arguing that the ability to mobilize labor on this scale was a cornerstone of early chiefdoms and social hierarchy. A single visionary could design an alignment, but only a unified community could raise it. This suggests a society with clearly defined roles, where leadership coordinated the efforts of thousands, from the quarry workers to the engineers who plotted the precise celestial alignments. Specialized knowledge was carefully guarded by a class of astronomer priests, individuals who spent their lives observing the sky and passing their understanding of solstices and star cycles to chosen apprentices. This was not a forced labor system, but a communal undertaking likely motivated by shared spiritual beliefs and the tangible benefits an accurate landscape map provided for everyone. Evidence from seasonal work camps near sites like Stonehenge indicates that construction was a cyclical activity, bringing people together at specific times of the year for both work and ceremony. These gatherings were probably marked by feasts and rituals, reinforcing social bonds and transforming backbreaking labor into a sacred act of common purpose. Consider the Moai of Easter Island, where clans competed to erect ever larger statues on coastal hilltops. Each colossal figure was a powerful territorial marker, a declaration of a clan's prestige and its claim to the land and resources behind it, mapping social power directly onto the geography. This drive to build together, to leave a permanent mark that charts our place in the world, echoes in modern humanity's greatest projects, from the International Space Station to vast digital networks. Yet, this very interpretation of social complexity remains a subject of intense debate. Were these projects the product of a unified, hierarchical society, or could they have been accomplished by more egalitarian communities pooling their resources voluntarily? The stones themselves hold the answer, silently challenging us to decipher the true nature of the societies that moved them. A sacred hilltop is more than just an archaeological site. It is a living ancestor to the people whose identity is woven into its soil. When a research team arrives with permits and shovels, but without the deep consent of the local community, they are not just digging for artifacts, they are digging into a beating heart. This is the profound ethical fault line that runs through the study of these enigmatic complexes, a conflict between the desire for knowledge and the duty of respect. Indigenous scholars like Vine Deloria Jr. powerfully challenged the academic establishment, arguing that archaeologists consistently dismissed native oral histories as mere myth, while treating their own scientific hypotheses as undeniable fact. This created a painful legacy where outside experts felt entitled to extract both artifacts and sacred knowledge, often without giving anything back to the descendants of the original builders. The ethical dilemmas are complex and far-reaching. There is the appropriation of indigenous knowledge, where spiritual understandings of a site are taken by outsiders, repackaged, and sold without context or benefit to the community. There is the physical damage from uncontrolled tourism and looting, which erodes the very landscapes these maps were meant to preserve. And perhaps most dangerously, there is the political co-opting of these places. Nationalist movements often seize upon ancient sites, twisting their ambiguous origins to support modern claims of territorial purity and historical supremacy, distorting a universal human heritage into a tool for exclusion. These controversies break down into urgent, modern subpoints. The debate over repatriation asks who truly owns the past. Should artifacts and even human remains housed in distant museums be returned to their communities of origin? The impact of climate change presents another threat, as rising sea levels and extreme weather events erode coastal sites and permafrost, threatening to erase these fragile maps forever. And at the core, there is the fundamental conflict between scientific and spiritual understandings. Is a stone circle primarily an astronomical instrument, or is it a temple where communion with the ancestors still occurs? A powerful example of this reconciliation in action is Uluru in Australia. For generations, the Anangu people asked visitors not to climb the sacred monolith, explaining its deep spiritual significance. For years, their pleas were often ignored by tourists who viewed the site as a physical challenge. Now, a permanent climbing ban is in place, a profound act of respect that prioritizes living culture over recreational curiosity. It acknowledges that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only honored. This shift forces all of us to consider what responsible engagement with these mysteries looks like. It invites a partnership where scientific inquiry walks alongside traditional knowledge, each enriching the other without claiming sole authority. As we stand before these ancient maps, we are left to wonder not just how they were made, but what they can teach us about living in balance with the world and with each other. A hiker stands on a windswept hill, the same wind that once cooled the brows of ancient builders brushing against their face. In that shared silence across thousands of years, a question whispers not about how they built these places, but why it still matters to us today. These enigmatic complexes are far more than archaeological puzzles. They are enduring symbols of human ingenuity and profound connection. They remind us that long before satellites and smartphones, we were already seeking our place in a vast, interconnected world. The philosopher John O'Donohue wrote of the silence of landscapes, a quiet that holds ancient wisdom waiting to be heard by a listening heart. These hilltops offer us that silence, a space to step outside the frantic pace of linear progress and consider a more cyclical, natural rhythm of time. They challenge our modern assumption that newer is always better, inviting us to learn from a past that understood balance. This reflection breaks down into deeply personal insights. First, these sites inspire a necessary awe and humility. Gazing at the scale of Silbury Hill or the precision of the 13 Towers, we are reminded of what communities can achieve when united by a shared vision, a potent antidote to the cynicism of our age. Second, their global distribution celebrates cultural diversity while revealing a universal human impulse. They teach us that many paths can lead to the same profound truths about the cosmos and our place within it. And third, they present a powerful model for community-based mapping and sustainable living. Their builders listen to the land, mapping watersheds and solar paths into their very design, a practice we are urgently relearning in the face of environmental change. Our own digital internet, that sprawling web of information, is in many ways a new global map, a nervous system for the planet that eerily echoes the prehistoric network of stone and earth. Yet it often lacks the sacred connection, the tangible link to the living world that these ancient sites embody so completely. So we turn the question to you. Where is your sacred place, your personal hilltop? Is it a quiet forest, a bustling city park, or a remembered landscape from your childhood? Share your story in the comments below, a modern mapping of our collective connection to the places that shape us. From isolated stones to a global whisper, our journey across these ancient hilltops reveals a pattern too consistent to ignore. These enigmatic complexes, from the moors of Britain to the peaks of the Andes, are not random monuments. They are the scattered pages of a lost atlas, bound by shared astronomical alignments, a recurring symbolic language, and a breathtaking geometric precision. We have seen how the solstice sun pierced the chambers of Newgrange and tracked the towers of Chankillo with the same exacting rhythm. We have traced the spiral motif from Irish tombs to desert rocks, a potential cartographic key for a prehistoric world. This was not merely a collection of local temples, but a profound human impulse to chart our world, weaving together science, spirituality, and art into the very fabric of the landscape. These sites speak to an ancient interconnectedness, a thread of knowledge about our planet and our place in the cosmos that may have spanned continents, only to be frayed by time and forgotten by history. Yet the cultural memory proved resilient, echoing in our myths, our medieval maps, and our enduring awe for high places. The astronomer Carl Sagan once reflected that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. In these silent stone circles and terraced mountainsides, we see our ancestors embodying that very quest, becoming the eyes and the mind of the earth, striving to comprehend their home under the vast starry sky. Their legacy invites you to look closer at the history written on your own horizon. Visit a local historic site, feel the age of the stones, and read the stories they might still tell. Keep an open mind about the profound capabilities of those who came before us. If this exploration of a forgotten world has resonated with you, please share your thoughts. Do you believe these hilltops hold the keys to a prehistoric map? Let us know and help this journey continue by liking and subscribing.